Dot Sutton, please come up. Dot has got some poems to read to us. One of them is hers, and then will you announce for us what you're reading, dear?
And thank you, Diana, for asking me to read poetry, because I love for it to be part of the ceremony. So she asked me to read one of my poems about renewal, and the one I chose put together musical terminology. And I want to point out these really large daffodils, because mine is about a trumpet, and it looks like the trumpet horn. And I'm reading just two stanzas from one of my poems, and just two stanzas from one of William Wordsworth's poems, so it won't be long, even though I have two poems. Spring Concert from the Daffodils. From winter's low-throated, mournful English horn, and finally the lilting silt of warming soil, rise the sweet phrasings of their song. In the background, we hear ethereal clarinet notes, and faintly, the violins. But over them all, we hear the trumpet notes of daffodils, bursting out joyfully from earth to air. These trumpets announcing the arrival of spring. So what do you do in these earliest hours? The first thing you do to worship in springtime is kneel to the nearest flower. And then the two stanzas from one of Wordsworth's poems. And he uses, I use musical terminology, and he uses the dance, so we're getting a lot of the arts in here. You may recognize this as a familiar poem. He's 19th century English poet, William Wordsworth. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Now often, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils.
Well, as you probably figured out, and based on our bulletin, we're talking about renewal today. And look at all these beautiful flowers people have brought. Aren't they wonderful? We're all going to get a chance to take one back with ourselves today. Well, renewal. Spring reminds us of renewal, of change. Most of the time we're just really excited about change. For many of us, this is a thing that sounds very, very good. New relationship, a new house, a new baby, or maybe a job, or maybe we're moving to a new place. So this sounds very, very good. And it is. But also it's very, very hard. Because every time we take on something new, we must leave something behind. And leaving something behind is hard. It's very hard work and necessary. Because what worked for us a few years ago may not work for us now. Heck, what worked for me last week doesn't work for me now. When I came into the sanctuary this morning, I greeted a number of people and gave them hugs. And Dora said, "How are you, really?" And I said, "I'm really great." And she said, "Well, no." She said, "I really want to know." And I said, "I'm really great." Now, I haven't always been that person that was great or said that I wasn't great, but I've learned. I've had some new behavior that was kind of forced on me a couple of years ago. We'll get to that in a minute. So this work, this very hard work, is strongly felt by humanity. But nature ebbs and flows quietly. The leaves fall, lay on the ground, decompose. The plants die back to the ground. The nourishment is sent into their roots, and the trees and the plants rest. And then in the springtime, we have little buds that start to happen on our apple trees and on our dogwood trees, and the cycle starts all over. So nature does this very quietly, rhythmically almost. But humanity struggles with change. Yet all the while we are changing in small and large ways, sometimes barely noticing, and some in huge shifts. Huge shifts in who and what we are. Sometimes the change comes into our lives without our agreement. Stuff happens to us. And when that happens, we have to shift. We have no choice. We have to adapt. We have to learn new skills, new behavior. We have to grow, and we have to grow up. Now it's time for a story. This is the tale of the lobster. Long ago, there was a certain lobster who determined that the Creator had made a mistake. So he set up an appointment to discuss the matter. "With all due respect," said the lobster, "I wish to complain about the way you design my shell. You see, I just get used to my outer casing when I've got to shed it for another. It's very inconvenient and rather a waste of time." "Very well," smiled the Creator. "From now on, your shell won't change." At first, the lobster was very content with wearing the same old shell. But as time passed, the shell became so cumbersome that the lobster couldn't feel anything outside himself at all. As a result, he was constantly bumping into other lobsters. Finally, it got to the point where he could hardly breathe. So with great effort, he went back to see the Creator. "With all due respect," the lobster sighed, "and contrary to what you promised, my shell has not remained the same. It keeps shrinking." "Not at all," smiled the Creator. "Your shell may have gotten a little thicker over time, but it has remained the same size. What has happened is that you have changed inside beneath your shell." So renewal is sometimes about choice, but not always. It's a life-affirming necessity. And shifting and changing almost happens to us without our agreement. We adapt, we grow. We throw away old attitudes, opinions, behaviors, and we grow. We can look to beauty around us in nature as an example. No 2 days are alike. Nature is in constant motion, constant renewal. We can look to the natural world for guidance. Some of you know that renewal was forced on me last January when I had a stroke. I remember feeling so lost. I had the stroke the day before I was supposed to be in adult RE with Debbie. And I texted Debbie and said I could not be there. And the truth was I couldn't quit crying. I felt my legs were just swept from under me. I didn't know what to do or what was going to happen. everything had changed in an instant. But looking back on that, everything has changed in an instant for the better. I really was forced to look at my behavior, at my constant driven activity, at my constant serving on committees, my constant saying yes to everyone and everything all the time, every day. And I started to say, I'm sorry, I wish I could do that, but I am unavailable. My point is this: that stroke was the best gift I've ever been given. And I look back on that and I am so grateful. It stopped me in my tracks. So I'm going to invite you to come up and share your new beginning, your renewal, or something that you're grateful for. Because no matter what happens to us, our attitude about it can make all the difference. And gratitude is the beginning of a whole new life, a whole new way of being, a whole new wonderful appreciation for what we're given. So, come up and light a candle and tell us about your new beginning or your gratitude. And when you do that, take a flower that you did not bring so that we can all share in this beauty. Now, those of you that don't want to speak don't have to, but come up, take a flower, and participate in the ritual. I invite you to come up now. Hi, darling.
I'm not exactly sure what we're doing, but I'm very grateful that the egg salad sandwiches went okay. Only a broom and a sponge was required at the end. So they're in there waiting for you. But I will say that this is kind of a spring thing maybe. At my house, last fall, we had this great idea. Actually, it was Ann Stebbins had this great idea that we should naturalize daffodils in the back 40. And we brought all these daffodils, and I bought this bag of 40 giant, what are they called? King Alfred daffodils, these big daffodils. But we only had a couple workers. So we planted a bunch of daffodils, and I ended up taking my big old bag of daffodils home, and I planted them out, like, from my porch looking out. Oh my gosh, they're beautiful. They're beautiful. So every time I look out there, I think about, the UU and service and how you make plans. And sometimes we get overambitious. But anyway, I love my daffodils.
Okay, I'm going to finish with my new renewal. I'm reading a book that a Buddhist nun friend of mine recommended. It's called The Intelligent Heart. And it's a very simple book. It talks about how we are so attached to what we want and how important we are and our ideas and our opinions and our way of doing things, that it creates all of our suffering, every bit of it. So the message from the book is, and the thing I've gotten so far, and I'm about 50 pages in, so the thing I've gotten so far is that all y'all are much more important than I am. And as soon as I have that thought, I relax. I'm at peace. So that's my new beginning I want to share with you. And I love it so much. And yes, Dora, I'm great. The title of the book is Intelligent Heart. Yeah. Okay, in your bulletin, let's read our closing words. We'll read them all together.